After the release of diss tracks back-to-back, and we mean back-to-back-to-back-to-back, a long-standing dispute between rap superstars Drake and Kendrick Lamar is once again heating up. This conflict has been going on for quite some time. A rivalry between Drake and Kendrick Lamar has existed for a long time and has grown stronger over the years, eventually becoming one of the most contentious feuds in the hip-hop industry. Despite the fact that diss tracks, subtle barbs, and industry power moves were all contributing factors to the tension, none anticipated that Serena Williams would enter the fray. However, she made her position abundantly plain during the Super Bowl in 2025, which added a moment that will live long in the memory to the ongoing conflict. Immediately following the occurrence that took place at the halftime show of the Super Bowl, Serena Williams is attempting to correct the record by asserting that her appearance was not intended to be petty. Come along with us as we dissect what took place, how everything transpired, and how we now understand why Serena despises Drake, the episode that marked the beginning of the conflict between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. To have a better understanding of why Serena Williams is so adamantly opposed to Drake, let's begin by discussing one of the most significant controversies in the history of rap music. The iconic confrontation that took place between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. A slow-burning quarrel that began with friendship, respect, and collaboration, before escalating into subtle barbs and one of the strongest statements in modern hip-hop. This was not just any rap beef. It was a deep-seated rivalry that had been going on for quite some time. Drake was already a well-known figure by the year 2011. In addition to demonstrating that he was more than simply a one-album wonder, he had effectively overcome the stereotype of being an actor who had transitioned into rapping. He had the statistics with Thank Me Later, but many reviewers still questioned if he could take it to the next level, artistically. Thank Me Later was highly successful. How did he react? A masterwork that solidified his position at the top, so take care of yourself. There were some of the most talented names in music at the time, including Kendrick Lamar, a young and ambitious lyricist from Compton. The song was emotional and raw, and it featured some of the most talented names in music at the time. Kendrick was immediately following the release of his album, Section 80, which made it abundantly evident that he was not merely another rapper from the West Coast. Rather, he was the rapper from the West Coast. Drake, who was aware of his potential, provided him with a significant cosign by including him in the Buried Alive interlude that was included on the Take Care album. The rapping that Kendrick did on Celebrity, Vanity, and the pressures of success was brief but powerful. He was talking about all of these things. When Kendrick was younger, he looked up to Drake as a guide, someone who had prior experience navigating the mainstream spotlight. However, this relationship would not continue for very long. On the beginning of 2012, a few months later, Drake extended an invitation to Kendrick to participate in his Club Paradise tour alongside A$AP Rocky. This presented a tremendous opportunity. Even later, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Calabasas, Drake made a reference to the choice, boasting about how he personally pushed to get Kendrick and Rocky on the roster rather than an R&B artist having been selected. In Kendrick's view, it was obvious that Drake was not merely another rapper, rather, he was someone who had contributed to the advancement of Kendrick's career. Their relationship was still strong by the time 2012 came to a close, and they even collaborated on 2 huge projects through their partnership. In the beginning, they made a joint appearance on A$AP Rocky's FN Problems, which was a chart-topping anthem that caused clubs to catch fire. First, there was Poetic Justice, which was included on Kendrick's first album released by a big label titled Good Kid, Mad City. As history has demonstrated, rap is never just about camaraderie. Rather, it is about rivalry. This was a clear demonstration of mutual respect between the two of them. The month of August 2013 saw the beginning of the shift in circumstances. When this point came along, Kendrick was no longer merely a rapper on the rise. Rather, he had become the name that everyone was talking about. He had released one of the most acclaimed albums in recent years with the record Good Kid, Mad City, and he wanted everyone to understand that he was not here to make friends. Rather, he was here to dominate. It was around that time that the infamous Control verse took place. In order to make it abundantly clear that he was not here to play nice, Kendrick made the decision to name-drop practically every major rapper in the game on the song that Big Sean was performing. Out of all of those names, Jay, first and foremost, Drake, followed by Pusha T, Meek Mill, and then Cole. Not content to simply call them out, he went so far as to declare war on them, stating that he desired for their followers to forget that they even existed. In recent years, it was the most blatant attack on the most prominent figures in the hip-hop industry, and the whole industry took notice. Due to the fact that Drake is Drake, he did not immediately take the bait. During an interview with Billboard, Kendrick was asked about his verse, and he responded by playing it cool and describing it as nothing more than an ambitious concept. On the other hand, he did not believe that Kendrick was capable of touching him, and he was not going to give him the gratification of an instant response. But regardless of whether or not he admitted it, Kendrick had caused a stir in the situation. In October of 2013, Kendrick tried another shot, this time at the BET Hip Hop Awards cypher. This was a few months after the last attempt. The iconic song Shook One's Beat by Mobb Deep was the backdrop for his direct attack on Drake, in which he mocked him for being sensitive and referred to him as counterfeit. At this point, it was very evident that this was no longer merely a friendly competition. Drake, who was still maintaining his cool character, responded in a manner that was not overt. By including a few subliminal bars in his song, The Language, he made it abundantly obvious that he was not going to allow Kendrick to take control of the situation without putting up a fight. Towards the end of that year, he stated in an interview with Vibe that he had maintained his position and was not going to allow himself to be drawn into a conflict that was not necessary. It was at this point that the Cold War between them officially began. They went from working together to competing against one another and from being friends to adversaries. The tension was evident, despite the fact that the situation had not yet escalated into a full-blown quarrel on either side, a moment of peace before the storm. Over the course of the subsequent several years, it appeared as though Drake and Kendrick Lamar had settled into a hushed, unspoken competing relationship. An example of one of those Cold Wars in which both sides occasionally use their weapons, but never resort to nuclear warfare. Even while fans were aware of the tension, it never reached a point where it became more than a few subtle digs in songs and interviews. The world of rap had witnessed something similar to this in the past. Two titans at the pinnacle of their game, both aware of the presence of the other, but too preoccupied with the management of their respective empires to engage in a full-scale conflict. Kendrick, who had always been a lyrical purist, had made a few jabs at Drake's reputation, particularly in relation to the suspicions of ghostwriting that had begun to circulate in the middle of the 2010s. While his statements were incisive, they did not come from a personal place. Rather, they were simply the typical competitive posturing that hip-hop relies on. Drake, on the other hand, did not show any signs of panic. If he ever answered, it was in the manner that he typically does. In addition to being clever and contemptuous, he was always cloaked in sufficient ambiguity that made it difficult to determine whether he was genuinely dissing Kendrick or simply flexing. It was by the year 2016 that their dynamic had reached a peculiar rhythm. Drake would look at Kendrick and smirk as he sidestepped the punch that Kendrick would fire at him. Every once in a while, Kendrick would tell the world that he was not impressed with Drake's success in the pop-heavy genre, and Drake would remind Kendrick that he had the charts, the fans, and the songs that were the most popular in the entire globe. However, at the end of the day, they were not precisely adversaries. Rather, they were just two rap titans who did not consider themselves to be on the same page. During the course of about a decade, this was the nature of their conflict. Stiff, yet not tense or explosive. Despite the fact that fans took sides, debated extensively, and examined every possible subliminal line, nothing ever really went anywhere as a result of it. After that, the year 2024 arrived, the rap battle that will take place in 2024. After exchanging back-to-back diss tracks, stirring up fan conversations, and upsetting the entire industry, what began as a few cryptic bars suddenly developed into one of the most intense rap feuds of the decade. Both artists exchanged diss tracks with each other. All of this started in March, when Kendrick Lamar made the decision that he had had enough of hearing. He went straight for Drake's neck on the song Like That, which is featured on the album that Future and Metro Boomin created together. Subliminals and coded words are not allowed. It was his assertion that there was only one rap giant, himself, and that he disregarded the concept of the so-called Big Three, which consisted of himself, Drake, and J. Cole. In a stanza that was abrasive and confrontational, he made it abundantly clear that he was prepared for battle. It took Drake some time to respond with a track, despite the fact that he is often one to take a slower approach. Instead, he addressed the matter during a concert in Florida when he addressed his followers directly and stated that no one on this planet could ever be able to mess with him. However, Kendrick's diss was not just any rap verse. Rather, it was an open challenge. Although it was a declaration that was confident, it was also somewhat ambiguous. Drake quickly came to the realization that he could not ignore it. By April, Drake had taken things to a higher level. A diss track called Push-Ups was published by him, and it was directed at Kendrick Lamar, making fun of his little stature and his affiliation with Top Dog Entertainment. Drake, however, did not limit himself to just one song. The next tune he released was called Tailor-Made Freestyle, and it was a track that incorporated the voices of Tupac and Snoop Dogg that were manufactured by artificial intelligence. This strategy was unsuccessful when Tupac's estate became involved, which resulted in him being forced to remove the song. Kendrick Lamar, who is known for his methodical approach to rapping, made a rare mistake, and he was not going to let it bother him. After that, the 30th of April arrived, the day that Kendrick made the decision to shake up the rap industry once more. In the song Euphoria, which lasted for 6 minutes, he delivered a verbal onslaught that ripped into Drake's reputation, his style, and his position in the hip-hop community. Everything about Drake was called into doubt by him, from the fact that he employed ghostwriters to his genuine relationship with the community. The song was not only poetic and snappy, but it also conveyed the message that Kendrick was completely focused on the task at hand. The response is instantaneous. 3 days later, Kendrick released another diss track titled 616 in LA, which was a follow-up to his previous diss track in which he alleged that Drake's own crew was conspiring against him. At this time, the internet had become a battlefield, with fans dissecting every phrase and every response. The bars had become colder, and the tone had become more authoritative. It was obvious that Drake was not going to take a back seat and allow Kendrick to dominate the conversation. His diss single, titled Family Matters, was released on May 3rd, and it brought the conflict to a level that was exceptionally intimate. Not only did he harass Kendrick, but he also targeted his personal life, calling into question his relationship with Whitney Alford, who was engaged to him at the time. It was a bloody move, and it caused much more mayhem to ensue thereafter. Kendrick, however, was not quite completed. Just a few minutes after the video of Family Matters was uploaded to YouTube, he responded with Meet the Grams. This time, he took the matter into his own hands and accused Drake of concealing another child, so calling into question his reputation as a family guy. It was one of the most intimate diss tunes that had been released in recent years, and it caused a frenzy on social media. In addition, just when it appeared that the dust would begin to settle, Kendrick struck Drake once more the very next day with the song Not Like Us. The song that was made by Mustard was more than simply a trash track. It was an anthem. Not only was it catchy and exciting, but it was also, most crucially, caustic. In his OVO camp, Kendrick made fun of Drake, turning serious allegations into amusing bars that are suitable for clubs. It didn't take long for the song to become a huge smash, demonstrating that Kendrick wasn't just trying to win verbally. He was also going to conquer the charts. Drake had to give a response. After a day had passed, he released The Heart Part 6, a song in which he attempted to take command of the storyline. He rejected Kendrick's charges, referred to them as fairy tales, and even hinted that he had sent Lamar with bogus material in order to see whether he would take the bait. In spite of this, Kendrick's momentum had already begun to shift by that point. When summer arrived, it was very evident that Kendrick had triumphed in this particular round. As a result of Not Like Us' meteoric rise to the top of the Billboard Hot 100 list, Kendrick Lamar achieved his first solo chart accomplishment since Humble. At a concert in Los Angeles in June, he gave it 5 consecutive performances, making it into a full-blown celebration and turning it into a full-blown celebration. In addition, he released the music video in July, which further solidified the moment's status as a cultural phenomenon, a competition for the Super Bowl. Without a certain, this dispute was not going to continue in the year 2024. Instead, it had become excessively large, too public, and too personal. By the time the new year began, Drake and Kendrick Lamar were no longer simply swapping diss tracks. Rather, they were engaged in a full-scale war. This war was not limited to music. It had spread beyond the realm of music and into other arenas, including court battles, award shows, and even the Super Bowl, which was the most broadcast event of the year. As the year 2025 began, Drake appeared eager to go on with his life. He released a freestyle in which he reminisced on the mayhem that had occurred over the course of the previous year. He called out the gimmicks and suggested that even his own buddies had liked seeing the war unfold a little too much. On the other hand, individuals who believed that he was prepared to let go of things were misled. After a few short weeks, he filed a lawsuit against his own record company, alleging that they had unfairly supported Kendrick's most popular hit and increased the number of streams it received. It was very clear that the conflict was no longer solely about lyrics. Rather, it was about power. During this time, Kendrick was doing quite well. 1 billion streams on Spotify was a significant achievement for his diss track, which had not only become a cultural phenomenon, but also hit a significant milestone. Following that, he achieved the pinnacle of success by winning 5 trophies at the 2025 Grammy Awards. These medals included some of the most prestigious awards that were presented that evening. In addition to winning all of the accolades, he accepted them while wearing an attire consisting of denim atop denim, which was a not-so-subtle tribute to Drake's Canadian heritage. On the other hand, the moment that would truly establish Kendrick's domination had not yet arrived. With only a week having passed since his Grammy victory, he made his debut on the most prestigious stage in the entertainment industry, the halftime show of the Super Bowl. There was a lot of conjecture going on for a number of months about whether or not he would take advantage of the opportunity to take another shot at Drake. This was, after all, the performance that received the most attention throughout the entire year, and the entire world was watching. Kendrick did not fall short of expectations. The tension was palpable from the time he stepped onto the stage of the performance. It was evident that he was making a joke at Drake's legal struggle over the song when he cut the music and made a sharp statement about lawsuits. He teased the crowd by pretending as if he was ready to play his biggest hit, but then he cut the music from the performance. Subsequently, a few minutes later, he granted the people what they had requested. As he flung himself into the track for real, the entire stadium screamed in excitement, and Kendrick, who is known for his flair for theatrics, made sure that every moment was executed perfectly. At one point, he made eye contact with the camera, smiled, and then said a statement that was just too particular to be anything other than a direct shot at his competitor. Everything went into a frenzy on the internet. It just took a few minutes for the performance to become the most talked about cultural event of the year. The overall conclusion was that Kendrick had just delivered the most impressive flex in the history of rap music. Memes flooded social media, celebrities weighed in, and the general consensus was on the same page. Needless to say, Drake was not going to let it go without a fight. He responded to his surprise album with Party Next Door, which was released just a few days later, and it included some of the most vicious lines he had ever spoken. The entire rap beef was dismissed as a diversion from serious music, and he made fun of Kendrick's accomplishment that he had achieved. On the other hand, even in the height of his rage, there was a feeling that he was aware that the tide had turned. What is the love story between Serena Williams and Drake? Undoubtedly, you are curious about the role that Serena Williams plays in this situation. Did you become aware that she was involved in a romantic connection with Drake? It is true that the tennis icon and the rap superstar were previously involved in a romantic relationship that caused the internet to buzz, paparazzi cameras to flash, and lyrics to drop cryptic references for years. On the other hand, much like any other good celebrity entanglements, it was not without its share of drama, heartbreak, and, of course, some music that will be remembered forever. In 2011, everything got begun. During that time period, Drake was rapidly ascending, shifting from the emotional rapper-singer hybrid that people were still debating over to a full-fledged superstar. She was taking a short sabbatical from the sport of tennis owing to injuries, despite the fact that she was already a dominant force in the sport. It was at that moment that the first sparks flew, at least in public. Serena was the recipient of a tweet from Drake in August 2011, in which he expressed his eagerness to make her sweat while she was competing. Drake is not one to shy away from social media flirtation. In addition to being cheeky and playful, it was also able to get people talking. The fact that he was spotted sitting courtside at one of her matches in Canada, not long after that, added gasoline to the fire of the speculations that the two were more than just buddies. Drake proceeded to use Serena's name into his music over the course of the subsequent weeks and months. In 2013, he released a single titled Worst Behavior, in which he rapped about having tennis matches at the crib and boldly asserted that he could defeat Serena if she played with her left hand. When you consider that the woman has won 23 Grand Slam titles, this is a bold statement. Yet, let's not forget that we are talking with Drake here. By the year 2015, it was hard to deny the relationship between them. In the summer of that year, Drake appeared out of nowhere wherever Serena was. As she competed at Wimbledon, he was seated in the stands and observing her. As a gesture of support for her collection, he was present for her fashion show. The paparazzi then captured them in a restaurant, sharing what appeared to be an intimate moment. This was the moment that confirmed what everyone had thought all along. There were even some reporters who were able to take a picture of them kissing, which made it abundantly evident that this was more than just a friendship. However, just as their relationship appeared to be heating up, things took a turn for the worse. In the same year, Serena suffered a devastating defeat in the United States Open. She was only 2 matches away from making history by winning a calendar Grand Slam. Long before the term Drake curse became a meme, there were some fans who blamed Drake, possibly in an unfair manner, by labeling him bad luck, and even referring to it as the Drake curse. To make matters even more confusing, Alexis Ohanian, one of the co-founders of Reddit, was quietly making his way into the picture. By the end of 2015, it appeared as though the period of Serena and Drake had come to an end. She was seen with Alexis more frequently by the end of 2016, and by the time that year came to a close, the two of them had been engaged. While this was going on, Drake did what he does best, which is to capture his emotions via song. A song titled Too Good was published by him in May of 2016, and it included Rihanna. In the song, he expressed his regret for being taken advantage of in a previous relationship. After a number of years had passed, in the year 2024, he acknowledged that the song was, in fact, about Serena. Serena, on the other hand, has never made any public statements regarding the relationship, since she would rather keep her private life out of the spotlight during this time. Nevertheless, if there was any uncertainty about her position, it became abundantly evident in 2017, when she tied the knot with Alexis in a breathtaking ceremony that took place in New Orleans. The fairy tale was finished, she had moved on with her life, had a family, and appeared to be living a life of unending happiness. Drake, on the other hand, was not yet finished with his discussion with Serena. In 2022, he rekindled old tensions by making a jab at her husband in the song Middle of the Ocean, in which he referred to Ohanian as a groupie. The action was a typical example of Drake's ability to poke fun at himself years after the event, just when everyone assumed he had moved on from the situation. Alexis, unmoved, responded on Twitter with what could be considered the most wholesome insult in the history of the world. He stated that he was glad to be the biggest fan of his wife and daughter. For her response, Serena used heart emojis, which were a straightforward yet revealing expression. However, the year 2024 was possibly the most significant time in Serena's relationship with Drake. She approached the stage as the host of the ESPY Awards and made a reference to the ongoing conflict between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Her comment was not exactly subtle. She informed the audience with a chuckle that if there was one thing she had learned over that year, it was that nobody should ever pick a fight with Kendrick Lamar. She said this when she was asked about it. Assault on Serena at the Super Bowl. Following Drake's insult to poor Alexis, we now see why Serena Williams is so enamored of Drake. She did, however, have a method of responding to him. The only thing she did was wait for the appropriate time to take action. And, at the Super Bowl in 2025, that moment arrived at last. Kendrick Lamar's halftime concert was already generating a lot of excitement across the world, particularly due to the fact that his fight with Drake had fully dominated hip-hop in the months leading up to the game. However, nobody anticipated that Serena Williams would show there, and even if she did, it was not in the manner in which she did. The audience sent out a collective gasp for air when she made her entrance onto the field during Kendrick's performance. Following that, she performed the Crip Walk just as the beat began to drop. It was a case of coming full circle, a callback that had been in the works for more than a decade. After Serena defeated Maria Sharapova to win the Olympic gold medal in 2012, she celebrated with the same dance that she had used previously. During that time period, she had been subjected to criticism that the majority of people regarded as being unfair. Commentators referred to the action as inappropriate and accused her of supporting gang culture. When other athletes had danced after victory, no one had really given it a second thought. Nevertheless, when it came to Serena, suddenly it became a contentious issue. More than 10 years later, she was doing it once more. But this time, she was doing it on the most prestigious stage in the world, and she was doing it on her own terms. And not just anywhere. She did it during Kendrick Lamar's performance of Not Like Us, the very song that had transformed his dispute with Drake into a cultural earthquake. She did it within the course of the performance. Exactly what she was doing was not a mystery to Serena. It was not simply a matter of dancing. Rather, it was a declaration, a maneuver of power. She responded to Drake right then and there in front of millions of viewers, if he had ever questioned which side she was on throughout the entire situation. Her method of expressing, "I'm exposing him now," was the tone she used. There was no need for her to have a diss track, a tweet, or a questionable interview. Simply by dancing and beaming from ear to ear, she conveyed the message in a way that was unmistakable. Drake, you are not someone I mess with. However, the meaning of the moment was far more profound. The tragic death of Yatunda Price, Serena's half-sister, occurred in 2003 when a member of the Crip gang was involved in a drive-by shooting. Many people were taken aback by Serena's decision to participate in the Crip Walk within the context of such a prominent event, given the traumatic experience described above. However, Serena made it abundantly clear that this was not about anything unfavorable after the fact. She expressed her amusement and added, "Man, I did not Crip walk like that at Wimbledon." In a video that she uploaded to social media, it would have resulted in a fine for me. She continued by saying, "All love." Despite all of the lyrical jabs and petty shots that Drake has always taken, he had nothing to say after this. Serena had communicated without uttering a single word. In doing so, she achieved victory once more. I was wondering what your reaction was when you saw Serena Williams perform the Crip Walk during Kendrick's performance at the Super Bowl. If you want to learn more, please subscribe to our channel and let us know in the comments.